Back to finish Edgar Wright off.
Yep. So on to Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which came out in 2007. 2007.
2010.
Oh, 2010.
Hot Fuzz is 2007.
Why is there something listed on here labeled "Don't"
Don't.
as his, and then it mentions Grindhouse?
Ah, yes. So Grindhouse, yeah, we could mention that briefly. Grindhouse is that double feature by Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. And
Yes.
in between the intermission, there's a bunch of fake trailers. One of which is for Robert Rodriguez's Machete, which ended up becoming a real film. Werewolf Women of the SS, which is meant to be a Rob Zombie movie that unfortunately they never made. But it has Nick Cage as a character called Fu Manchu. The other one is Don't, which is like meant to be a campy old like Hammer horror film. And it's just supposed to be like a ridiculous like 70s like not a slasher, but like a sort of slow-paced horror suspense movie. Kind of like The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue. I don't know if you've seen that before. It's just like a pretty decent zombie movie.
Gotcha.
Like an Italian zombie movie. And the other one is Thanksgiving, which they just finally made into a film.
Oh shit, really? Is that Eli Roth?
Yeah. So basically Edgar Wright, Eli Roth, Rob Zombie, and Robert Rodriguez are all friends with Quentin Tarantino. And so they all got together and they were like, what if we made these ridiculous short trailers for your movie? Also, Hobo with a Shotgun. I forgot there's that one as well, which also became a film.
Hobo with a Shotgun is who?
Jason Eisner.
Jesus Christ. Do you remember when we sat down and we were going to watch something and it was like late at night and we started that and I was like, nope, I can't watch too much of this, like, or any more of this. It got like 3 minutes in and it was just too much schlock.
That one is like really, really off the beaten path sort of exploitation, actual like grindhouse type movie.
Which, to be clear, is enjoyable at times, but you like, at least for me, I have to be like in the mood for something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, so Edgar Wright, that's just an aside, is friends with Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez, so they were like, yeah, wouldn't it be funny if our friends made these ridiculous trailers for fake movies, which I'm very thankful for them having actually made both Thanksgiving and Hobo with a Shotgun and Machete into real movies. I've not seen Thanksgiving yet. I intend to, just because I mean, as bad as some of Eli Roth's films are, that one sounded like it was maybe a sort of back on the right track for him. We'll talk about Eli Roth at some point. I don't know if you've seen any of his films, but they're...
Eli Roth?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about him either this morning or like last night for some reason, just because I think I was thinking of him in Inglourious Bastards, and then Tim Roth is also someone that Tarantino uses a lot. However, they're not related.
Right.
I don't know. That's just where my circulating thoughts went for some reason. Anyway, yeah, I saw that under Edgar Wright and was confused. Anyway, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah, this is based off a graphic novel, I believe, or not a comic series, but an actual graphic novel, and it's like a rom-com action movie. So it combines a lot of the same sort of tonal elements as Wright's other movies, but this one leans more heavily into like a video game aspect, like trying to put video game pastiches and elements into a film, which I think generally works pretty well. The plot is extremely straightforward, like a video game would be, where basically Scott Pilgrim, who is played by Michael Cera, um, wants to date this really hot lady, like hot alt. What's the dream pixie? What's that thing called? Pixie.
What?
This is a term. Manic pixie dream girl. That's the term.
In the movie or in real life?
It is a thing in both real life and in the movie.
Oh,
You've never heard of this before?
I probably have, but shut it out.
Oh, it's
I don't, okay, to be clear, I don't have a problem with that term. It's more there's just too many words in that term. Manic Pixie Dream Girl?
yes.
Okay. Got it.
I'll Google it so you can have an exact definition.
I don't need that. I understand.
Okay.
I don't like, to be clear, I don't have a problem with the term. It's like my own brain. That's the problem.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the best way I can put it.
In media analysis in the last 15 years, it's definitely an overused term and doesn't actually accurately describe the Ramona Flowers character from this film. It would be more accurate to say she's an like alt girl, which is just like an aesthetic type of person with no real personality, but has just exactly, there you go. And part of the character in the movie is basically that she lacks personality but changes her hair color, and that decides what her personality is that given day.
Right.
The movie is both making it's the same with his other films. It both pays some sort of reverence to these tropes while also making, satirizing them. But yeah, he is dating a 17-year-old high school student, but he meets this girl at a party and wants to date her instead because she is more attractive than a 17-year-old kid.
How old is he?
22.
Ugh.
Yeah, so that's a different element we'll get to, but basically in order to date her, he has to fight her 7 evil exes. And so he fights them in like hilarious comic book / video game type battles, some of which are just actual music battles, which are kind of cool. All in all, he basically just defeats all of the exes in various challenges and then ends up with knives at the end. Or no, he ends up with Ramona at the end. This lady.
Okay, you said the word knives, and I didn't know that was a person.
Knives is the underage girl that he's dating.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah, that's my bad. Because the problem is they initially had the ending be that he goes through this quest and then decides not to be with her because the pursuit of having to be with someone with that much emotional baggage is not worth the trouble, he decides, and he ends up just staying with the girl he's with.
The pixie?
The child.
Yeah, I'm saying the pixie has the baggage.
Yeah, the pixie has people he literally has to battle to be with.
Too much pixie dust.
But yeah, I got confused because this is a movie where they shot that ending, which is much darker because it's basically like, what is the purpose of a journey? Like, what is the point of going through these hardships if ultimately you're still not going to be satisfied? What the fuck?
I don't know. I was just looking at GIFs and that popped up.
The noseless. This is the noseless cut of Scott Pilgrim.
To be clear, this movie I remember like me not watching because it looked too cartoony from clips I had seen, and you were like, no, you should watch it. It's worth it, and it definitely was. Yeah, the whole pixie concept I think is actually done well in this because it, as you said, is both pointing out that people are this way, but then also is making fun of the fact that some people, how do I put this nicely, center their entire identity around their aesthetic of their hair color. for in this movie they do that, but in order to bring it more into the real world, I mean, right now I'm thinking of like Twitch streamers, right, who are either cosplaying or just doing whatever, where they're constantly changing their image, which is fine. I just also don't think that you should center your entire identity around an aesthetic, superficial quality. But that's my own takeaway.
Yeah, well, part of that plays into the deconstruction of like the tropes of romantic interests in films. Because part of it is like you have your trope that's like the girl next door, which is like the attractive, available, easy to approach, easygoing girl that is in close proximity to the protagonist, as opposed to this one, which is the literally unattainable dream girl with lots of emotional baggage and you have to like complete a quest like the Hellraiser Cube in order to go on a date with her. In this case, it's not Hellraiser Cube, it's just fighting a bunch of superpowered people. So he ends up fighting like a vegan who's Superman and literal Captain America. I don't know if you remember, but Chris Evans is one of the X's.
Yes.
Ironically, the guy who plays the vegan also literally played Superman, Brandon Routh. Just as a I guess fun note.
Also, to be clear, I am not against people dyeing their hair color, honestly, or changing their entire aesthetic or image. I think that creative-minded people somewhat actually need to change their image because it inspires different ideas and can like motivate you. It's more like just don't base your entire identity around anything that's superficial is more the point I'm driving at.
Well, that is a big part of this film, is saying that there are these people who are not well-defined characters because they're defined by a single like aesthetic characteristic, which is mirrored by the fact that like all of the music and like they're in an indie band and a battle of the bands, and they're more interested in the aesthetic of the band than they are in the actual music, which changes over time as they get more serious about the music.
I forgot about that, but yeah, that is a actually, to loop that idea back on itself, I think that ultimately, I mean, as a coming of age story, if you want to approach it that way, that's kind of how people come of age in any domain or anything that they're interested in, is that you like basically fake it till you make it, right? You're like, oh, I'm going to dress up like I'm in a rock band. Oh, I'm going to like do this thing. I'm going to buy a guitar, but you don't know how to play it, right? You're going to do whatever it is that you think you want to do. And then when it actually comes time to the rubber meeting the road, you're like, shit, I haven't practiced enough to actually be good. But then eventually, like if you actually care about it enough, you're going to be willing to actually put the time in to do whatever the thing is that you want to do. Writing, playing guitar, drawing, making movies, whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately how this movie ends, is he's only able to defeat the main villain, Gideon, played by Jason Schwartzman, by earning the power of self-respect in the form of a like katana sword. Because ultimately, like at the end, he apologizes to everyone and takes responsibility for his failures, not for the creepiness of dating a 17-year-old, mind you. I guess brutal. 2010 was a different time or something, but basically once he accepts that responsibility and decides he wants to fight Gideon, not because he wants to earn love, but just because he wants to defeat an evil guy who uses mind control or whatever, he's able to team up with his lady child friend Knives, and they defeat him. Obviously, there's some
lady child friend.
I was gonna say lady friend, but she's literally not really a lady. She's a 17-year-old kid, so it's
special lady friend, but
she's not my fucking special lady friend. All right, she's just my friend. All right, connections. Yeah, so that's yeah. This I do think it's a very well made movie from a direction standpoint.
Absolutely.
Edgar Wright hits this one out of the park. He's able to tackle a complex series of tones and characters and ideas and make it something cohesive. I think the biggest problem with this piece of work is ultimately that the themes don't necessarily make sense together. The story is a little bit strange, and obviously there's the creepy element. Like the hero of the story is very flawed to start with, and even though he accepts responsibility for his flaws, he doesn't necessarily change them at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So I think that's and this is something that will come up again and again now in the rest of Wright's work, that without the tandem writing duo of him with Simon Pegg, his work severely suffers. But this one I do think was a very well made movie that does deliver on the promise of the premise. Like it has
on the ideas that it started out on.
Yeah. Like there's video game martial arts fight scenes, which are fun.
Graphic novel turned into video game. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like it's a wacky stuff. The humor is still there. It's very funny. What's his name? Kieran Shipka. The dude from Succession, Macaulay Culkin's brother. Kieran Culkin. Yeah.
Kieran
Culkin.
Oh God.
It's not my fault that Kieran is a weird name. All right, Kieran is it's just tough for me to pronounce.
It's like a Welsh or like Irish or Scottish, I think, origin name.
Yeah. But he at any rate, he's really funny in the movie for the 10 to 15 minutes he's in.
Speaking of which, I think there are three Culkins: Macaulay, Kieran, and Rory. Always forget about Rory.
I was gonna say I thought there were like 7 Culkins.
No, there probably are. I just mean like ones that are within media. I'm sure there are more. Anyway, don't want to go on a Culkin tangent. The next one is Baby Driver, right?
There are 2 pit stops we have to make before we get to Baby Driver, because Edgar Wright, in between the making of The World's End and Scott Pilgrim and Baby Driver, he attempted to make some other movies. They just didn't work out. One of which was a movie that did get made, The Adventures of Tintin.
Right.
He ended up writing with several other people. It's very unclear who actually wrote it. It's a really weird combination of writers. He wrote it with Stephen Moffat and Joe Cornish. Stephen Moffat is the dude who basically successfully revived Doctor Who in the 2010s and made the BBC Sherlock, the 2010s Sherlock show.
Gotcha.
Joe Cornish is a director and another writer who's worked on all kinds of random things. The only movie of his I've seen is a weird action sci-fi movie called Attack the Block, which is like in the same vein as some of Edgar Wright's movies, and Edgar Wright produced the movie. But at any rate, Adventures of Tintin and Edgar Wright's next movie he would write and tried to direct, Ant-Man, also written by Joe Cornish. Adventures of Tintin is like a motion capture animated movie that thankfully isn't like totally motion capture, so it's not that like uncanny nightmare fuel from like the Polar Express.
Good God.
Which we've talked about that before. I've got like a good 45-minute rant about Robert Zemeckis in me that is just bursting at the seams. Because there's some of that in here, like some of that Christmas Carol Zemeckis bullshit is in Adventures of Tintin.
Which Rob Z do you prefer? Robert Zemeckis or Rob Zombie?
How do you mean? Like on the whole, like on the aggregate?
Not like as a person to hang out with, but yeah, on the aggregate, their filmography.
Zemeckis, because he's actually made several quality movies.
All right. Anyway, what's the next one? The next pit stop?
So yeah, he wrote Adventures of Tintin, which was really it just had a weird behind the scenes of like Peter Jackson wanted to direct it, Kathleen Kennedy was involved, Steven Spielberg. These are all names of people who have disastrous times in filmmaking, except Spielberg. His next one was Ant-Man. So Ant-Man is one of the Marvel films. Edgar Wright wrote the screenplay with a bunch of other people like Paul Rudd and Adam McKay and that other British director, Joe Cornish, and ended up leaving the movie because Marvel wouldn't let him do the stuff. Marvel was like, yeah, you can direct these 9 scenes, but these other 15, we already got them queued up in the computer. Like, we don't even need you or the camera for those.
Yep.
So he quit. He's one of several high-profile directors that tried their best to work within the Marvel system and just were like, nah, it just can't do it. So yeah, it's worth mentioning that like he tried to go totally mainstream and failed because he, as it turns out, does just have too much creative vision. Ant-Man also had like it took like 10 years to make this movie. Like I think Edgar Wright wrote the script in like the early 2000s. There's just a lot of weird stuff with making these big budget movies. But anyway, now on to better things. Baby Driver.
Yeah, the movie that I've been waiting to talk about for this entire time. Sorry, as you could tell, I didn't want to make those pit stops. Just wanted to get going on this one.
Well, it's worth noting that like
no,
these directors like would be making more movies, but the process of working in Hollywood is something that just grinds your life down. You're just a little thing in a pestle that is being slowly chipped away.
Yeah, and you have to fight against that creatively or give up, unfortunately.
Or just take a big paycheck for having story and script credits on Ant-Man, cashing it and just going, all right, I guess I'll go make my own stuff.
Yes. So 2017, here comes Baby Driver. This movie is a heist-esque action car chase musical film. Yeah, exactly. It is quite a blend and a mix of genres as we've seen him do before. I do really like Ansel Elgort. I forget.
Ansel Elgort.
Ansel Elgort.
Yeah, another guy with a wacky name.
I like him because he just looks like the most generic white guy ever. And like when you slap some sunglasses on him, he looks like every white man with sunglasses on. like he doesn't really have any distinguishing features other than he is a white bread like white bread guy. And that's what I like appreciate about him is despite his looks and features, he still is like a solid actor. I've been meaning to watch, I think it's called Tokyo Vice, or something like that, too. Where he's in. Because I mean, obviously he does a really good job in this movie. He plays like a getaway driver, right? That's his skill, and there are tropes of like one last ride. We need you for one last ride here, and then he's like, "No, I don't want to do it," and they're like, "You gotta do it." A nice Kevin Spacey is in this one.
One of his last roles before something happened to him.
Yeah, exactly. John Hamm as well.
Acquitted of all charges. I don't know what to say.
John Hamm?
Oh, Kevin Spacey.
No, I know.
Legally did nothing wrong. Other than maybe forcing those suicides.
There's some other
Jamie Foxx, John
high-level
Bernthal.
actors.
Bernthal, not Bernthal.
Oh.
Sorry, having trouble here.
Oh.
That's it. John Hamm, Jamie Foxx, John Bernthal. Flea, I think is in
Lily
it.
James.
I feel like Flea.
Flea?
You know, the bassist from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Isa Gonzalez. What is she in? She looks familiar.
Yeah, Isa Gonzalez.
What has she been in?
She's a model.
Lily James has been in a lot of things recently, though. She vaguely looks like that lady from Twin Peaks.
Yeah, Madchen.
Yeah, Madchen. She looks a lot. It doesn't help, or it does help her looking like her because she also is a waitress at a diner. So it's just, they just are dressed exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, this movie basically, his guardian is sick, right? And he needs like money to take care of him in some way, and he comes across a girl who works at a diner who he cares about, and then basically is extorted into doing heists or getaways from heists, because he doesn't actually do the heist. He just provides the driving away from the heist, when John Bernthal, John Hamm, and Isa Gonzalez all have to get away, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It is an odd combo, John Hamm and John Bernthal in the same movie, because they are kind of similar, but also quite different.
Yeah, they don't share the screen for very long because John Bernthal just is not in the film for very long.
I guess Jamie Foxx also is part of the... Is he a part of the heist, or is he part of the like planning aspect?
There are multiple heists. Yeah. So there's basically three main heists. There's the heist we start with at the beginning, where the heist is completely removed from the equation, and it's pretty much just there for us to have a big car chase. And then heist 2 is the botched heist with Jamie Foxx, Flea, and
Flea, yeah.
I forget who else is on that one, where they're wearing like Michael Myers masks, but the wrong one.
Yeah, because they don't communicate which Michael Myers. So they get Mike Myers, right? The actor.
Yeah, like the actor masks. Yeah. Like they wanted the James Kirk, like Halloween Michael Myers, the shape mask, but instead they got that spy who shagged me.
Mm-hmm. What I appreciate about this movie, aside from the awesome car chases, because the car chases are really fun, I really like the synesthesia that this movie provides, where it really brings like sounds into colors, and like, as you said, musical. It has musical elements, right? Because Ansel does a decent amount of dancing in the movie, along with whatever he's listening to, right? Because he has tinnitus, I believe. And so basically he's constantly listening to music in order to sort of drown out the tinnitus that he has. Yeah, so he always has like one earbud in, at least. That's like his thing.
Yeah, this this movie has a very straightforward plot. Like, there's just the heists. The last heist goes wrong. Baby ends up having to like kill Jamie Foxx and the other people because they get angry at him, think he's gonna like turn them into the police. Like, the core of the movie just becomes, I'm too old for this shit. I want to get out of the game and marry this nice waitress lady and have a good old like 50s life, like 1950s. The ending does not feel earned whatsoever.
No.
Of him, he like goes to jail and then it just like has a vision of being released from jail, and then is released from jail and lives happily ever after.
Yeah,
primarily putting it. I think it's a very undercooked script with a lot of great action. And like all of Edgar Wright's strengths are shown, but I think this also highlights a lot of his weaknesses, which is his tendency to underbake scripts without the right amount of help. And since this was only written by him, there was no one else telling him, like, you might need some more elements to tie stuff together.
Yeah, like a few more, like more glue or scaffolding. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it underutilizes some of the strengths of the actors in the film, including Spacey, John Hamm. Um, Gonzalez, I think, is appropriately used. Jamie Foxx steals every single scene that he's in. He's the best part of the movie, I think, by far. Lily James is basically just there to be a model. She doesn't really have a lot of material to work with. The heists themselves are kind of fun, but they're very short. Everything is there in service of chases and showing off cars driving.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a complete style over substance movie that wants to pretend at the end that there was substance.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I would agree
But all
with
in
that.
all, I think it's a great movie. Like, it's really well directed still. I think it just has some writing problems.
Mm-hmm.
But excellent cinematography. I like the music choices. Like, it has all these great actors. They're just not necessarily given anything to do.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. They're not given enough to do. Or given like the correct things to do.
It was also shockingly not as big a budget as it seems like it would have. I think it only cost like 30 million, which was like the same cost as World's End.
Damn. With all those actors, that's wild.
Mm-hmm. I think several of them definitely just like took cuts to be in the movie. Like they were just like, I just want to be in this fun movie. The most expensive one was almost certainly Jamie Foxx. He's like notorious for expecting a lot of money.
He also may just be like the most talented person in the movie.
It's close. John Hamm, it's hard for me to ever like not say John Hamm's portrayal of Don Draper is like an all-time great performance, but
sorry, I meant like overall talent. Like Jamie Foxx just is notoriously more like one of the most talented people that also is an actor.
Yeah, he's an athlete and a musician and a rapper, and he could do anything and just has that like.
Yeah, I don't know
it. He's just talented, charismatic.
And I don't know what John Hamm does outside of acting. Like I honestly am not sure.
He was a teacher.
Right.
So moving on to
I did see there was a Sparks Brothers thing.
Yeah, in between Baby Driver and his newest film, Last Night in Soho, Edgar Wright made a documentary called The Sparks Brothers, which is about the Sparks, which is like a British pop rock band or duo. I'm not familiar with them at all, and so I have not seen the documentary and almost certainly never will, unless I go through a phase of like getting into like.
We apologize for anyone who is a giant Sparks fan and you were just waiting for this moment after you saw that we were doing Edgar Wright, but we're not going to be covering that content.
Yeah, I'm just not into like
documentaries or music videos about a documentary.
Yeah, exactly. Or
documentaries about music videos, yeah.
Or that specific time in time and place in music history.
Right.
Like I think the Sparks existed alongside talents like Giorgio Moroder and the Go-Go's and other like synth pop bands. But they were kind of like in between other artists that I am a fan of. So it's possible that I would really like their music. I'm just not familiar.
Got it. Yeah, so the same year, 2021, Last Night in Soho came out, starring Anya Taylor-Joy and I can never remember this woman's name.
Thomasin McKenzie.
Thompson McKenzie. I was gonna say Mackenzie Thompson actually, not Thomasin.
Thomasin McKenzie.
Yeah. And Anya Taylor-Joy has been absolutely just crushing it as far as what she's starring in, how well she's been acting, I would say, for the most part, in everything she's been in.
Oh, but yeah, talk about a talent. Just immediately is...
she's obliterating everything that she's in. Like, she's so good.
Yeah, I haven't seen everything that she's been in. Like, there's been a handful of movies of hers that I wish I had seen that I just haven't yet.
I think she's in Saltburn, that also just recently came out.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. No, I don't see her listed in that.
Oh, never mind.
I do want to see that. That's that
same.
gay movie with I don't remember either of those actors' names.
Keoghan.
Yeah, Barry Keoghan.
Anyway, last night in Soho, full disclosure, I watched this on a plane, so unfortunate viewing experience.
Watched this in 2 parts, so I also did myself and the film a disservice. But
Jesus Christ, yeah, I just felt like it was worth noting that the viewing experience probably is going to color our perspective and perception of the movie itself. That being said, this one has like the most horror elements to it, and definitely like you can clearly see his influence from movies like American Werewolf in London. Like, this has a lot of elements of that.
And that one, what was that one called? That's primarily in Venice with Kiefer Sutherland. Don't Look Now.
Holy shit! Yeah, Donald
just
Sutherland.
Like yeah, what did I say? Kiefer. Kiefer Sutherland. No, his father, Donald.
That is crazy that those two are related.
What the hell? That Donald is still alive and in movies. That man is so ancient, and
that old silver fox.
Yeah.
At any rate, this movie, this girl is like in the British countryside, and she wants to be a designer, a clothing designer. And so she basically ups and moves to London to go to school. And weird shit starts to happen to her in her dreams where she is a different person. And that's if you're visually watching this, that's where Anya Taylor-Joy comes into the movie. She is Anya Taylor-Joy, and Anya Taylor-Joy is her within the dreams. And eventually you realize that basically Anya Taylor-Joy did live or was a real person a while ago, and basically she's trying to like have Thomasin like solve like cases that happened before. Visually, it's a really cool film. The camera work is excellent. I would say
the cinematography, I think, is the best part of the movie.
Yeah,
which should come as no surprise. Cinematographer Chung Hoon is a frequent collaborator of Park Chan-wook. So Chung Hoon worked on stuff like Old Boy and
oh shit,
The Handmaiden. A couple of his other movies as well, like Lady Vengeance and Stoker. But yeah, I mean, he's a great cinematographer, and it didn't surprise me at all when I saw his name in the credits and was like, oh, that's why that movie just has such a distinct visual style. But yeah, I sorry to cut you off there. I was going to say, I think what frustrates me about this movie so much is how the visual style and direction doesn't motivate things like story, character, emotional beats, or humor, which has always been Wright's strong suit.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
Because I think Wright is capable of making a great psychological horror film, but I think he got really bogged down in the details of the period he was doing and the larger story he was trying to tell of like comparing now to then.
Yes, that's definitely where the movie starts to go off the rails. Is about 3/4 of the way through whenever you start to realize what the crux of it um what the crux of it is, and basically it gets like really bogged down in exposition there, explaining sort of the crimes and everything. And I don't exactly know where I'm trying to go with this, but the main character kind of loses the thread. But like, I don't know if my problem was with the staging of the discovery of the crimes itself.
No, I liked that.
What?
Just I don't have a lot to say about this movie. In terms of where it falls in Edgar Wright's sort of collection as a filmmaker, um, like in his filmography, it feels like a stepping stone. Uh, and hopefully he can keep making original films because that's a big part of what makes him a fascinating artist is that he's been able to constantly, consistently make original films. Um, in that like mid-budget category, which basically doesn't exist. Unfortunately, this came out in 2021, so it was a COVID release, and
Yeah.
so it did not do well at the box office, which is true of a number of his movies. We didn't really go over that. The three Flavors Cornetto films were all hits, but Scott Pilgrim was a bomb. Like it just lost a significant amount of money. But Baby Driver was a huge success, which I think is why he was allowed to make this weird movie.
My God, did they like really see a raccoon and they were like, all right, we got to get this lady to look like a raccoon. like she doesn't look like a raccoon, but she does with all of this makeup and everything on. Like very, very ghostly. But yeah, no, I totally I didn't know that about the performance of them. I would assume Baby Driver would do well with all of those high caliber actors with him directing it.
Yeah, it's a very entertaining movie, low stakes, maybe a little pretentious, which was like the thing we talked about. But
I think the ideas in this movie are present. They just don't ever really like fully feel like they get completed, if you will. Like even after basically she solves the mystery itself and figures out how to sort of end the loop, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
it just doesn't feel complete. Kind of, I think this and Baby Driver, as you said, really demonstrate Wright's strengths as well as weaknesses. Yeah, and that he does really need people to collaborate.
well, he did have a collaborating writer on this film, but it was a writer that is I'm not a big fan of.
Gotcha.
Christy Wilson Cairns, who is known for having co-written 1917.
Christy Wilson Cairns catching stray bullets.
Yeah, and she wrote a number of episodes of Penny Dreadful, which is overall, I would say, a decent TV show, but she wrote some of the worst episodes. So I don't mean to just throw this poor lady under the bus, but
yeah, you're really tossing her under these London buses.
I don't know. This isn't that well written a movie. I think Wright.
It absolutely is not. You're right.
Wright needs some time. I think he should write with another writer. I think it would really help him out to write another film with like Simon Pegg or maybe one of his other really high-profile friends in Hollywood, like Robert Rodriguez or Quentin Tarantino.
Jesus Christ, a collab of him and Quentin would be absolutely ridiculous.
Well, Tarantino claims he's retiring after The Critic comes out, so once that happens, Tarantino will probably just become a writer, and hopefully he can collaborate with people like Rodriguez and Wright.
We can only hope. That would be amazing. Be so excited for
a
that.
maniac like Tarantino is not going to just sit idly
He can't
by.
stay. No, he's not going to be able to stay away from cinema.
That man is a problem. Like he cannot sit still. There's just no way.
Yeah. At any rate, this guy, and I mean, this is the last movie I'm not sure what are we what's the outset here for anything that he's about to release. Like, what are some of his upcoming projects? Do we know?
No, I've not heard anything about him making another movie soon. I know he's always been in the middle of trying to make stuff.
Yeah.
I think he was signed to Netflix to make some things, but it was very unclear if any of them worked out. I know he's like partially sort of moving more into production. Like I think he owns a production company now. Let's see, upcoming projects here.
The Chain and The Running Man.
Like
the Chain is in
The Running Man?
The Chain is in pre-production and The Running Man is in development. That's not really necessarily the best sign, that the labels on those.
Yeah, I mean, there was a Scott Pilgrim anime show that just came out like several months ago on Netflix that I didn't watch. He was definitely a producer on that.
The Running Man is the futuristic United States of 2025 when the world has become a dystopia. Writers are Michael Bacall and Stephen King, because it's based off of his novel.
Yeah, that's a remake of the Arnold movie.
Mm-hmm.
That would be interesting to see him do that. I mean, the movie is like all over the place. I don't know if you've ever seen The Running Man.
No. The Chain is a mother finds herself trapped in a terrifying kidnapping chain.
Yeah, it seems like basically Nick Wright is all over Edgar Wright is all over the place. Like he's working on stuff. He has a bunch of projects in the fire, and it's just a matter of how the studios work together to finance them, probably, and if he has enough time in the day to get it all done.
Yep.
He's really active on Twitter. I know that, or X or whatever.
Oh God.
So I'm not that active there, but I know that you can keep up with him and what he's doing there, because he's just constantly typing away. So I'm sure if I check there, we'd be able to find exactly what he's up to. But yeah, all in all, he's like a lot of the fellas we've talked about so far. He's an original filmmaker, an original storyteller who uses the form of filmmaking in a way that feels fresh or felt fresh for a time. He's made some phenomenal movies. I would definitely recommend all of his movies that I've seen. I hope to watch Spaced soon. It's just not available to watch anywhere normal.
Yeah.
It's like only on BritBox, and I'm not going to pay for some janky British streaming service.
I think Broadchurch might be on there as well, which I've been trying to watch for a while.
That was on Netflix, but
no longer.
Oh, too bad.
Yeah, anyway, he like to actually define this guy. He's great with action, great with color, camera movement, and I mean he always seems to blend editing elements really well into his movies, and it's unclear whether or not or how much of that is due to his own decisions, or if he's just really good at hiring the right editors or working well with those editors.
I think his best movies are like edited as he shoots them. Like I think he could just see like the editing is just a clear part of the image, both from the script to the direction to the editing room.
Right. And as you identified about a half hour ago, you talked about how some of the scripts are like half baked or not fully realized. And those are the ones that suffer typically.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is the fact that I think Simon Pegg is just a disgustingly underrated writer, which is hard to think about because he's written like blockbuster movies. But I think his voice in those brings a lot of the emotional core and humanity to them that Edgar Wright doesn't seem to have been able to reproduce as well without Pegg's voice. Because Pegg also wrote one of the Star Trek movies. That might be the only other thing he actually wrote.
Yes.
And that was like one of the better written versions of those blockbusters for whatever that's worth. But
I saw that one in theaters. Yeah.
Star Trek Beyond.
Yeah, exactly. The one with Chris Pine.
Well, they all have Chris Pine, but there's like three. I guess we shouldn't go too deep into Star Trek because we'll never leave.
We need to end this, and I need to eat food.
Not even a big Star Trek fan. We can go for a while here.
So yeah, next steps. If whenever it is that you're listening to this, if we want to kind of mention maybe some of the episodes we're kicking around or ideas we're kicking around, but if you stuck with us around for this long, we appreciate you. What are some of the ideas that we're looking at doing next? Vaguely Mad Men.
Yeah, I'm working my way through Mad Men and trying to like get a lot of stuff written down so it's a little less scattershot when we talk about it, because talking about TV shows with that many episodes on the fly is tough. Stuff can fall through the cracks. So
I think we're getting more into a good formulaic process of discussion though, as opposed to being like all over the place or less all over the place. When do you want to do that? Like frauds, hucksters, and hacks, whatever that was.
I mean, part of me just wants to do episodes about artists who are maybe not just artists that we really like. They could be ones who are more flawed. Like Robert Zemeckis is just a fascinating case study onto itself.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll save those conversations for another time. And just
we can just put it all here. Game of Thrones. We're going to talk about Game of Thrones soon. Both the books and the movies, or TV show rather.
Yeah, because you did read all the books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. At least we both have consumed everything then that's been put out.
Yeah, I was just going to say the big thing for most people is just where's the end of the books, but
where is it, George?
I'm not concerned because all the endings that are possible based off of the threads that he gave us are far better than any ending he could write at this point. So
yeah.
Just don't be like Edgar Wright, write some mediocre endings. Just don't write an ending. Just let people fantasize forever, George.
That's the true way of making a boatload of cash is you just write an insane series, but then you just don't end it, and then people are like growing more rabid by the year.
Most of his he's on Twitter and like on his forums all day, and his fans ask him questions, and he's like, "I'm still working on it. Don't worry."
I'm still looking at the tortoises in my backyard. They're just walking around the garden.
Holds the world upon his back. That's Stephen King.
Yeah, let's end this. It's time. It's time to be done here. All right. Adios, everyone.